I'm Fake Zappa and I approve this message. I want to tell you a little something about why I do what I do. Something weird happened when I got on disability was that I lost my music career for one thing. Another thing is that everybody wanted to educate me, especially when they found out that I didn't have a degree in anything, no matter how many schools I went to, no matter how many skills that I learned. So it was interesting that it was like my power was stripped from me. And there was a mute button that was somewhere in my body that folks could just basically shut me out. And that was one thing that made me go, this is really surreal. And how they treat the disadvantaged is very interesting because they want to throw money at me, they want to throw advice at me, but when it comes to actually doing anything, they want to keep me a secret. They're afraid of what I have to say, especially because when I went to the educated community, when I went to the gay community, after I experienced a lot of trauma as a result of anti-gay forms of therapy within the religious right, you would think they would have been there for me. It was a sad, sad story that they don't want the public to know about. So that's another reason. The main reason I do what I do has to do with men and mental health and how hard it is for men, especially guys who haven't had a lot of introductory good stuff when it comes to the mental health community. A lot of it has to do with the fact that it's not accessible anymore. It's very cheap these days, and it doesn't cater towards men. It doesn't make men feel very safe, especially when it comes to rural America and rural communities, working class guys. So as I travel around America, I'm hearing stories all the time, and I'm meeting men who need mental health care, who need to know how to practice reasonable self-care. And I don't see it happening. I don't see it available. And here's the thing, is there's a lot of talk these days about violent crime, especially when it comes to firearms. So we're talking about an unreached demographic who has a hard time getting mental health care, access to more firearms than a lot of other communities are, and an aversion to educated culture. So we have this clusterfuck of how hard it is for an unreached demographic who is at risk to themselves and to others. And when it comes to violent crime, this is what made me want to act out. This is what made me want to speak out. Every time, ever since the mid-90s, when there were acts of violence and mass murder that had to do directly with obvious mental health issues that were not diagnosed, that were not treated properly, there's a lot of talk that goes on. And every time there was a mass shooting or something like that, it became normal. It became something that was like, oh, well, when's the next one gonna happen? Oh, well. And you know what's so sad is that I saw these horrible crimes as something that was so unusual and so horrendous and so shocking. The biggest thing that shocked me about violent crime was the fact that it became so normal to me, especially in Western culture and in this country. Even in my own neighborhood, there was a shooting that happened 2 miles away from where I was living. And I had just gone to this movie theater just a couple of days before, and there was a shooting there. And I was still numb. And I thought, if these shootings become so normal that I'm numb to them, then what's that say about our country? What's that say about where we're at in the last several years? And I've been around a lot of people who are so anti-gun control. And they're typically the same people that believe that a guy, even on Medicare, can walk into a mental health clinic or can walk into an emergency room or a psych ward and actually get help. Well, that doesn't happen, and I have proof that it doesn't happen like it did 10, 20, 30 years ago. So there's a myth going on, and that myth is go get help. That myth is he needs to get help. She needs to get help. And that was okay maybe 30, 40 years ago. Now these days, somebody tries to get help, especially on their own, they're not going to get the help that they need like they could because of cheap mental health, cheap health care, and what's going on today, and the myths from those who are in charge of these healthcare organizations and the mental health care organizations and the people that they need to be reaching, especially that have a conservative ideology, have an aversion to what we call healthy mental health, which is influenced by things that freak them out. So we are basically saying to an unreached people, one, whether literal or figuratively, we're going to take your guns away, which I don't think that's such a bad idea. It's just that when you start walking around the real America and you see how unrealistic those attitudes are, and the same folks think that we are treating the cause, and really what happens is that the cause has to do with trauma, untreated, undiagnosed mental disorders, and how hard it is for those kinds of folks to get help, even if they want help. And for those that don't want help, we are not making it easy for them to want to get help. So that's the long version of why I do what I do. I'm Fake Zappa and I approve this message. For more information, go to fakezappa.com.